call this meeting to order at 6:02. This is our business meeting. It is Tuesday, May the 12th, 2020. Because of COVID-19, we are abiding by CDC guidelines. Currently in the room, we do not have more than 10 individuals, and we have opened up our lobby with the television view from there so that individuals in the lobby can see the meeting, and then they are there if they would like to speak during public input. And we are abiding by the 6 feet rule, so we are 6 feet apart. At this time, who you will see on the camera tonight in the room is we have Dr. Moore, myself, Mrs. Justice, Mrs. Diagresta, we have Brandon, our tech support in the back, and then by teams, we have Mrs. Rosario, Mrs. Berenborg, and Dr. Schiff, who will be joining us via Teams through the internet. And at this time, I would like us to, I do want to mention, because it was requested that I make sure that I mention this. We are in the middle of celebrating our seniors this week. And in doing so, today it has been set up that in celebrating our seniors for 2020, tonight and today has been prom day, and everyone who is supposed to dress in their formal attire and their prom dresses and their tuxes. So when you're watching this, I just want you to know that we are in celebration of our seniors tonight. And at this time, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and have the Pledge of Allegiance. So please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so board members, at this time, it is time to adopt the orders of the day. Are there any items that board members wish to move from consent to action? No? I do want to add on here that we will have a discussion item, the letter that was prepared today by council and Dr. Moore in regards to the millage, so that will be at the end for discussion. So at this time,
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Second.
Mrs. Berenborg, and then Mrs. Justice. Mrs. Berenborg, would you like to speak to your motion? Nope.
No, thank you.
Mrs. Justice?
No, thank you.
Any other discussion? Nope. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So that is 5-0. All right. Kristen, I see no presentations tonight. Okay. Okay, we are going to move into our citizen input portion. At this time, we have invited individuals in the community who did not feel comfortable coming out tonight and giving citizen input, that they were able to send in emails to citizen input May 12th at indianriverschools.org. And then we had given a timeline asking the individuals to please email us by noon today. At this time, there are no public comments via email, but we do have a guest with us today that would like to speak during citizen input. So I'd like to welcome Jennifer Freeland.
Hi. Good evening, I should say. You all
Yes.
look lovely, too. You do. You look really nice. So after today's meeting with the county commissioners, I was kind of fired up. And I stayed fired up, even while I was doing grading, video conferencing with students, checking on my students' reading diagnostics results. And when I was doing this, I was listening to the school board workshop. I was still pretty fired up when I started to write for tonight, while still listening to the school board workshop. I was writing about all the wrongs of today. And then Dr. Moore came back from the break, ready to support us again, and apologized because he worried that his message may not have been clear enough. Well, it was. I tend to call things as I see them, and your message was as clear as all of our messages were. But it was then that I stopped and took a pause, and I decided to talk about something else that happened today. It is not unusual to have solidarity with our fellow union leader, Mike Murray, but today we did see something rather unusual: solidarity between the unions, the district, and the school board. We were all on the same side, making it best for students, urging the county commissioners to put their millage on the August ballot. With our past experiences, I was prepared to be disappointed with Dr. Moore. Fortunately, so far, he has shown us, don't mess me up, he has shown us a mission that aligns often with our missions, with our own missions. I'm not saying that this will always be true, nor am I saying that everything is rainbows and unicorns, or that we will not disagree. I'm sure we will disagree, but that will be okay because you and your leadership team are at least listening to us for the first time in a very long time. Today is different. The voice and the messages were direct, clear, and unified. Today, I am proud to be working with this administration as a teacher in our county and as one of the leaders of IRCEA. I feel that Dr. Moore is humble, and he is going to say it isn't him or it's this, that, or something else. And you're right, it isn't just you. That takes a whole lot of people and a whole lot of time. But I believe that the climate and culture comes from the top down, and that is you. It is the captain of the ship who sets our course.
And if I could just say, Jennifer, when you stood up to speak, and I know you were not prepared to speak, and you took your purse and you handed it to Liz, and you spoke from the heart, I think that captured absolutely everything as to why this was so important. So thank you for what you said. Your words today inspired me, as frustrated as I was, as you are, and shared. As I shared at the beginning of the meeting, I just left fired up for our collective effort in unity. And I am looking forward, and you're right, there will be opportunities where we don't agree, but ultimately our work is aligned, our purpose is aligned. So today, although the system set back, our momentum will propel us forward. Thank you for your words.
Thank you. Thank you for today.
Before you leave, I believe we have other board members that, see, what happens is on Teams, I get this little pop-up that says board members want to comment. So I think there was a board member that wanted to comment. Mrs. Berenborg.
Yes, I just want to say thank you for coming out to the districts today, taking the time also this morning to speak, but also coming tonight and speaking and being positive and talking about unity. And times like this, we really need to hear that message, so we appreciate it very much. And thanks for everything you guys do.
Thank you.
And Jennifer, I want to say thank you today, too. I know that you did not plan on speaking. Neither did I, but I felt at the time when you and I got up there, we were unified in the support of wanting to get this done for the purposes of that we presented to the board. I think we did a really good job. So I just want to say thank you to you, Liz, and Mike for coming out today. Great job, and times have changed, so, and I'm glad that you recognize that. Thank you.
We're listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All right. So let's move on to consent agenda. Need a motion for approval?
I'll make a motion.
I'm looking at Mr. Fagan, and he's just looking at me. I'm waiting to hear from you.
Second.
He cannot approve. Okay, was that Mrs. Berenborg with the first? Okay. Would you like to speak to your motion?
No, other than just to say thank you for clarifying a lot of questions today. And I think having that workshop and then be able to vote tonight will make our meeting tonight go a little smoother. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. Mrs. Justice?
Yes, thank you very much. I just want to say thank you to the superintendent and his staff and cabinet for creating a system where items are brought to us, we're able to ask questions and do research and ask any other questions. I appreciate it. And it certainly gives us the opportunity to be prepared for different items on our agenda.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I want to make a quick comment. Among the things that have shifted in the district that has really changed is we now get, can you hear me? Am I echoing too badly?
No, you're fine.
Okay. It used to be often, before Dr. Moore got here, that when the agenda for the business meeting came out, I would look to see what we were going to talk about. And while perhaps I had spoken about that with the superintendent, perhaps I hadn't, but I certainly hadn't been briefed by the members of the cabinet who were going to be speaking to us at the business meetings. That has dramatically shifted since Dr. Moore got here. And now every time I look at the agenda for a business meeting, I feel prepared, I feel briefed, I feel like it's not incumbent simply on me to look for the nuance, but I've been told exactly what it is before I get here so that I'm prepared completely by the cabinet before I get to the meeting itself. So if we get to the consent agenda, none of it is new information. And that's a departure from the past, which I really appreciate and just want to acknowledge at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I don't see any further discussion, so I am all in favor of the consent agenda?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I just have a comment that
Oh,
I wanted
go
to
ahead.
make. I apologize. On the consent agenda, we have approved the purchase of a number of new laptops, and that was discussed during the workshop today. I'm not going to delve into the details of it, but I do want, if people would like to know what our plan is moving forward with the laptops we've distributed, getting them back, and making sure that all of our students have the technology they need in classrooms and at home, please watch the workshop. Dr. Moore did an excellent job explaining what the plan is going forward.
Yes. Yes, and thank you for bringing that up. There's several items on the consent that we did discuss today in the workshop, and for further detail, I would suggest for everyone to try to take a minute and watch, well, take a couple hours and watch that. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Any opposed? No. 5-0.
Can I make a comment? Oops,
Yes.
muted. My mute. In this, one of the things that we've just approved also in the consent agenda was to set a public hearing code for the revised code of, a public hearing date for the revised code of conduct, which we discussed this afternoon. And I said in this afternoon's workshop that there were some people I wanted to acknowledge who worked very hard on that process. And I didn't do it then because I know more people pay attention to this meeting than the afternoon meetings. And so I want to acknowledge the work that went into this code of conduct, which is really a departure from the past in many ways, in both its format, in its content, in its focus on values, in its shift from a punishment orientation to a more inclusive and preventative and intervention approach. And I want to name some of the people who were responsible for that particularly and thank them for their work. Certainly Mrs. Dampier, who spoke this afternoon, but I also want to acknowledge Dr. Sharon Packard. I'd like to acknowledge Mittina Papalardo, Levon Walker, Camille Battori, I'm saying that name badly, I'm sorry, Donna Hedgecock, Dr. Tracy Crawford, Jessica Rojas, and of course, Dr. Catherine Parandozzi, all of whom really had a hand in recreating this new code of conduct and taking us into the future as we redesign a district based on a belief system and a values system that we can all stand behind and create a holistic approach to how we do the work of this district. So thank you to everybody who had a hand in that.
Okay. Thank you for recognizing them. So at this time, what we're going to do, we are going to, we do not have any action items. Typically, if we had consent agenda items that we wanted to pull, we would have put them in the action. And So what we're going to do is we're going to move on to our superintendent report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have one item as promised early on February, when we approved the African American Achievement Plan. I committed to provide a update at once every month. This is my update for this particular month. I did not think I'd be giving this same update in the same structure. The virtual, I thought it'd be back to reality come my second update of this plan, but here we are. So I just want to make sure the presentation is up before
Okay.
Brandon.
Hold on one second.
There we go. All right. I know you can't see me. I have a bow tie on, but hold on. Now you can see me again. Thank you, Brandon. I would like to begin with the timeline. I know COVID-19 has interrupted the globe, but we were very persistent in continuing to do this work. So as you know, some of the February dates, the February 20 and 25th, those were action items in which you were all very involved in. March 2nd, schools began to create their own plans, as we will do in the implementation of this plan, as well as moving forward, allow schools the opportunity to design their own plans with parameters, but designed by them that will ensure that they work. Moving into April, support was given to principals and district staff via meetings, emails, teams, webinars, phone calls, and that really was an opportunity to begin to align our work and look at the data that we were collecting, shifting our practice, and you'll see in the coming slides, COVID-19 obviously has impacted the data collection process as well as the implementation of action steps defined in the plan. But we wanted to be very intentional about what we can still do to learn from our actions to modify and improve our support of children in this particular district. And then we were able to upload. So we have an upload to the plan, and we'll talk about that in the coming slides. The progress report has been updated as we began to go through that problem-solving process as I described. We look, where can we continue to track data? We know we can't track all data because things have shifted. When I say we can't track data, as in my last presentation, some of the outcome assessments are not taking place. School grades aren't taking place. EOCs aren't taking place. So those were clearly defined progress monitoring tools because of COVID-19 that weren't taking place. But I didn't want to give the perception or lose the momentum. So we said, all right, well, let's really focus in on and enhance our work in the areas in which we still can implement. So we were able to still conduct recruitment fairs, school enrollment, screening for including the Plan B gifted, eligibility for ESC services, the racial ethnic breakdown of new hires, attention rates, still able to look at all that data. When we begin to evaluate within those sets of data, we do show progress in some areas. More students enrolled in credit recovery. I was just on a chain of emails today looking at the graduation support that's been provided for students at Sebastian River Senior High School and the work that they're doing really to ensure every student has every opportunity to walk across that stage, and it seems as if some good work is being done there. We're able to look at our student recognitions. Those numbers are going up. That was data that we hadn't previously captured. We've increased participation in our virtual job fair at University of Florida, Florida State University, obviously given preference to Florida State. But we did not yield, we didn't yield the results that we like. So we completed the action, but as you see in the coming slides, or actually in 2 slides, so let me pause that and continue with the implementation. Implementation of progress at our schools, virtual data chats with teachers, monitoring course failures, monitored student not on track to graduate. Let's just reference some of that. But as Jennifer was just referencing, our teachers are going above and beyond in connecting with students and providing them multiple opportunities to continue to find success. A lot of work is being done by our teachers just to encourage students to stay the course. So we're looking forward to getting back to normal, and our teachers have been just praisers and getting our students to move through this reality. So in looking at opportunities for improvement, no additional hires of African-American teachers was made. No letter of intentions were given at a recruitment fair, so we intended, but we weren't able to hire. As you know, some of that is, not all, some of that, the majority of that, we're not hiring teachers now. We're using some of our assistant principals and other instructional personnel to cover teachers that have separated or resigned or positions have become open. We're able to continue to provide high-quality instruction for those students. So we're not in that process of hiring within the midst of COVID. Improvement of data inclusion on documents submitted as artifacts. So in looking at how we're collecting artifacts, multiple opportunities to improve. Actions that we're taking. And when I say actions that we're taking, these are things that we're learning as we continue to implement. And we still have significant learning to take place as it comes to recruitment. And as we look at our numbers for next year, we know there's going to be a minimum of around 40 to 50 new hires as a district. And though that is an opportunity for us to examine our behaviors and looking at what hasn't worked in the past and being very innovative. And when I say innovative, not only changing our practice in terms of a historical perspective, but outlearning the reality of COVID-19 and going out and recruiting. So I think the committee has done some good work in looking at long-term solutions and working with our current seniors, and some outstanding work in looking at students in community college or two-year schools and enticing them with employment upon completion. That work is still in development, but still multiple opportunities to improve within that particular area. We continue to post and be transparent with our work, so you'll see the updates to our plans on our equity webpage. It has all of the work that's been done, where you can break it down and take a look. Wanted to highlight areas that we updated information within each of the goals, the action steps, and the data that's been uploaded. So we continue to push through, examine ourselves, and learn as we go. The Equity Committee was supposed to meet Thursday of this week. And polling the committee members, they decided to push that meeting back until, I want to say, June or July, their next scheduled meeting, which will allow us the opportunity to once again provide an update to them in the areas that we're doing, we're monitoring progress. So just wanted to quickly update, very, very brief and to the point presentation, but we continue to evaluate ourselves, we continue to monitor our implementation, and really looking forward to doing work over the summer to enhance this work, bring an updated plan, and get back to normal and really see positive impacts as we continue to implement this plan. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So I don't see any questions on that presentation. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and move into our discussion. And I believe by email, everyone has received their letter. Is that correct? Can I get heads?
Yes.
Ladies? Everyone has the email letter? Okay. So I'm going to, I have to pull it up.
I just pulled it up.
Pull it up. Do you have it?
I mean,
I don't. I'm trying to get it right now.
so as the board members peruse the document, just to set it up for those who are listening, this is a letter that was crafted by our school board attorney, my staff, and myself in between meetings to send to the county commissioners to ask them to evaluate or reevaluate their decision not to place our request for referendum on the August election date. Rather, they made the decision to push that election to November. So what we've done here is highlight in a very clear and articulate way our interpretation, the interpretation of statute that revolves around the millage. I think the best person to provide an overview of that would be our school board attorney, and I'll ask her to do so, as well as the impacts of postponing that decision, even that 2.5 months that it will have on us as a system, and then finally asking them to reconsider at their next meeting, which is a week from today, and providing me the opportunity to address them once again. I think that this letter captures the intent that was discussed this morning. I would like Mr. Gresses to kind of highlight some of the statute references so we're all clear, and then we'd be happy to seek any feedback that you may have. I pinned the letter from the school board chair. If that's not the intent, then we could change it. I wasn't 100% clear on that, but obviously I will go with the direction that the board provides. Mr. Gross?
Yes,
I'm sorry, go
Madam
ahead.
Chair, thank you. The information that I included in the letter is essentially the statutory provisions in the education code which speak to the ad valorem millage. There is one statutory provision that speaks specifically to it being a 4-year ad valorem millage, and that's the millage that we are going for. And that statutory language then refers to a second provision in the education code, which provides additional requirements with regard to going out for such a referendum. And the language that I've quoted here, we pulled directly from the statute, that the school board is to direct the county commission with regard to placing the item on a ballot. And then the second statutory provision speaks to the discretion of the school board with regard to it being on a local referendum or a general election. So despite some of the information that was shared today about a sales tax and the statutory requirements with regard to a sales tax referendum, which prohibits it being placed on any type of election other than a general election, the statutory language with regard to this type of an ad valorem millage doesn't have that restriction, and in fact allows the school board to place it on either a local referendum or a general election. So that information was shared there. Can I answer if I can answer any other questions, I'm happy to.
Okay. Dr. Schiff?
Thank you. I just received the letter sort of moments before the meeting, so I've been scanning it, and thank you. It's a very good letter put together on very short notice, so thank you, Dr. Moore and Ms. DeGresta, for doing that.
Of course.
One of the things that was cited this afternoon by the county commission was the concern about voter turnout in a primary election versus a general election. And while that's not the specific basis on which we're asking them to reconsider, it has been past practice that these referendums have gone forward, as you mentioned, have gone forward at the primary election rather than at the general. I know that that's not, it's alluded to in the letter, but it was a specific concern of the county commission that too few people might turn out to a primary election, that it would not be representative of the will of the general populace. Is that anything that we want to talk about or address in any way? Because it is really a departure from past practice. Past practice has never brought that up before. It's never been a consideration that I'm aware of. And I'm really opening this to discussion among my fellow board members and Dr. Moore and Ms. DeGresta, if that departure is particularly significant at this juncture.
Through the chair, you are correct that today's decision was in stark contrast to past practice. The 4 county commissioners that voted against our request to have it placed in August were the only 4 that were on the council in 2016 which voted to have it placed on the August ballot. So you are correct in saying it is a shift from past practice. But you are also correct in saying that we do not reference that in this letter. I think our intent was to stick to the statutory, the statutory definition as well as the impact. And we did not include any information regarding the rationale as to why they interpreted statute in a different direction.
Okay. Mrs. Berenborg had a comment or question?
Yes, the way that this is worded sounds, it wasn't particularly their decision to put it earlier or later. It's our decision. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Gresta, do you agree?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear
up.
I didn't hear the question. It blipped in the middle of your question. I'm not sure I understood your question. I'm sorry.
Okay. Is it our decision or the county commission's decision to decide if it's in August or in November?
According to the statute provisions that I provided in the letter, it's the discretion of the school board to decide which election it's put on, but then the school district, the school board directs the county commission to place it on that election on that ballot.
Okay, so if that's the case, then that's what we need to stress. I think they thought it was their decision, and they made it there. If it's our decision, then we need to stress that that's what the statute says. It's our decision.
Through the chair, I think that's what the letter states. I think the variance or the difference of opinion is right there. They believe they have the authority to say when, where we believe we have the authority to say when. If I'm misinterpreting that,
Right.
I believe that is, and I think that's the only point of contention is the interpretation of statute or supporting statutes in which who has the authority to say when. That's the disagreement.
And I think that's our ticket right there, is we just need to say, we have a statute that says it's our choice. Why aren't you following? Hello?
Okay. Did you get your question answered, Mrs. Berenborg? Okay. I'm sorry. I think it's pausing in between, Mrs. Berenborg. It's kind of in and out. I'm going to go to Mrs. Rosario, but if you did not get your questions answered, can you put in the comments that you want to speak? Mrs. Rosario?
Yeah, I'm actually going to answer Mrs. Berenborg, because in the fourth paragraph of this letter, it actually states, in addition, during the county commission meeting, school district staff referenced Florida statute 1011.73, which indicates that the school board, pursuant to the resolution adopted at a regular meeting, shall direct county commissioners and shall direct in bold letter. Shall direct the county commissioners to call an election at which the electors with the school district may approve an tax millage as authorized under statute 101. I'm skipping it, and provide, quote, a school district may levy by local referendum or in general election. And those are also in bold letters. So I think that might answer Mrs. Berenborg's question is, does this letter address it? And it does there.
Okay. Dr. Schiff?
I think what Mrs. Berenborg may be asking for, which I think is easily rectified, is to either strengthen the language about that in the letter, or while it says shall direct is emboldened, perhaps we embolden that entire sentence and italicize shall direct, and then also embolden the sentence that says, when read together, these statutes allow the school board to direct the commission. Again, because I think the language is there, and I think what Mrs. Berenborg is asking for, which I agree, is to strongly emphasize that language, that we are not taking, We are not intending to be contentious or adversarial. What we're requesting is to follow the language of statute, which enables us to direct the county commission at our discretion at which election it goes to. And we want to be clear about that. Because as we talked about this afternoon in our workshop, and Mrs. Justice spoke to, we have no intention of harming our relationship with the county commission or any other of our partners in this county. But what we do want to be clear about is that we follow the rules, we follow the law, and that nobody, including us, takes as discretionary things which are not discretionary. And if we were to do that, we should be called to account for that as well as anybody else. So it's not that we hold ourselves above that. We would expect the same if we were also in any way not adhering to statute.
Okay. Mrs. Berenborg?
Yeah, try this again. Can you hear me?
We
Yeah,
can.
much better.
Yes.
Okay. I would like to not just send a letter, but have us each maybe call the commissioner that's in our district and point this out to them so that it doesn't become this huge public event as it is now. It's possibly a public event because we're discussing it here.
Okay.
Can handle it a little bit better if we point out, because it seemed like today that we caught Dylan a little bit off,
I'm sorry.
turning a little bit on what statute pertained to what we were requesting. And I think that, Suzanne, you're correct. If it's our authority to do this and our authority to make the decision, then we need to let them know that that statute gives us the authority, not them. And I want to be very, very professional and gracious about it and just point that out. Because I think if we pointed that out, that really, truly, that it's our authority, I think they would understand that.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you very much. In preparation for the meeting this morning, it was not my plan to speak at the County Commission meeting, but I did. I know it's a shock to a lot of people, I'm sure. But I read the staff report. So you can imagine my surprise when I read the staff report that Mr. Reingold presented to the County Commission. It comes from the Office of the Indian River County Attorney, where he actually cites the statute and uses the word "shall" direct the county commissioners. He cites statute 1011.73, and he cites again that we were calling upon them we were directing them to place this on the ballot for us in August. And his recommendation was, it says the county attorney's office recommends that the board approve the resolution as presented or amended. So when I was asked about it when I walked into the county commission building, having read the staff report, it seemed that the county was very clear about what the statute said, and it has been ministerial in nature for the county commission to place it on the ballot, to place the referendum on the ballot for us. So, imagine my surprise at what occurred this morning. And so we need to look no further than that staff report recommendation for their position. And that's on their agenda that's listed in their backup for the county commission agenda. So there are a number of other issues here. I have some questions about fiduciary responsibility of school board members and of county commissioners. I have some questions about perhaps a conflict of interest with school board members and county commissioners. We, in fact, do have a school board member, Mrs. Zork, that is married to Mr. Zork, who is a county commissioner, and he voted against the wishes of the school district today. I don't know what that means, but we do have a fiduciary responsibility to work in the best interest of the district. This is kind of uncharted territory for us, but I wanted to ask Suzanne, it hasn't been an issue a lot. As far as my time on the school board, I can remember, I think, once that Mrs. Zork recused herself from a vote. I don't believe it was required, but she felt more comfortable, and we understood that and respected that. So I did have a question about perhaps a conflict of interest. And then also, if the staff report is citing the statute that you read today, Are you under the impression that there's some confusion as to what the statute says?
So I'll answer the last question first, and I'll work my way back. I spoke by phone with Mr. Reingold prior to the meeting several times. He and I had several discussions, and I believe he is clear about what the statute says. No, I don't believe he doesn't know what the statute says. I believe he interprets it differently. So I believe he has a different interpretation of what the law requires.
So staff's recommendation had changed, I guess, and we weren't aware of it.
Now that I don't know. The agenda item that I reviewed from Mr. Reingold is just the same one that you reviewed, that he
okay.
was recommending approval.
Right. Okay. I just wanted to.
Of the resolution or an amended one, so I don't think he was actually taking a position of what the resolution would say.
Okay. But was stating the statute.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, he absolutely cited the statute, but I believe he and I have a different interpretation of what the statute means. Moving back through your questions, you asked a question with regard to a conflict of interest. For local elected officials, the conflict of interest statute is set out in Chapter 112, which is our code of conduct for elected officials. And that conflict of interest requires certain things. You abstain from a vote if you believe you have a conflict of interest on an agenda item or something that needs to come for a vote in front of the board. And the statutory standard is essentially that if you believe that the item inures to your own public or private interest, your financial interest of you or a family member, then you are required to look at the issue, determine if you have a conflict of interest, and if so, you need to abstain from the vote. There's a specific form that must be filled out and submitted to the school board clerk of the works, Mrs. Esplin. So with regard to that process, I'm not aware of a conflict of interest for a school board member voting or having a position that may be different from their spouse who is on a different board. That in and of itself is not a conflict. The issue is whether the vote that needs to be taken will inure to your personal private gain.
Right. And would re-election be a personal or private gain?
Typically, political campaigning is not something that is covered by the Commission on Ethics, but I am happy to inquire of the Commission on Ethics, specifically on that point. I didn't do that before I came in here today, but typically re-election campaigning is not, unless of course there's bribery or collusion or corruption, those are addressed, but simply campaigning for an elected position would not be a conflict of interest.
Great, thank you.
Mrs. Rosario, do you have a comment or question to this? Because
Oh
I
my
would
God.
like to.
I have so much to say. First of all, let me just ask Dr. Moore for a district specific question to
Mrs.
this.
Rosario, can you, 1 second, because I want to address what was brought up just now, unless you want to address
I'd love
that.
to be the first one to address it.
Okay.
Because we have not had a chance to talk. I would love to be the first one to address that, please. And I know that it's personal, but to you, but
Okay.
maybe I should start there. All right, I'm going to start there then. First of all, there is nothing in this process that you, Mrs. Zork, are voting on. So there is no need for you to recuse yourself of anything. If anything, anyone would think, why didn't Mr. Zork vote in favor because you're married to him? Not the other way around. There is absolutely, I am really tired of the board meetings being a platform to discuss political issues. Whether you're running for an office or not, it is absolutely ridiculous that every meeting something comes up with regard to something political, someone running, or some issue, or some whatever. There is no collusion here. There's no unethical anything. The bottom line is it was voted by county commissioners 4-1 to not put it on the ballot in August versus November. That's it. we've got to stop looking into it.
Mrs. Rosario, excuse me,
No,
I just want to say, I asked the question.
Can you-
Mrs. Justice came
No,
to us earlier
Mrs.
today,
Yep,
and
Rosario
she
no problem.
expressed at the very beginning that there was a conversation that she had apart from our county presentation, or, you know, for us going before the county commissioners. And after that, she had a private conversation with a county commissioner. I mean, if anything, I don't think any of us, other than you, Mrs. Zork, with your husband, may have had a private conversation with a county commissioner, but she did. And she was approached and she felt uncomfortable with that conversation. She brought it to our attention. And I actually think that it was a concern for us to all agree on the same platform, or rather on the same, you know, in the same purpose for that. Now we're addressing it, and now it seems to be an issue of the Zorks. You know, it has to stop. It has to stop. Let's focus on the issue that is before us and stop talking about political issues. The county commissioners, whether they're running or not, school board members, whether we're running or not, the president, whether he's running or not, who cares? Right now, we're talking about going for a millage and how do we address the county commissioners on this millage issue. That's where it should end, and that's where it should stop. That's my opinion, and I'm really tired of this platform. Dr. Moore sent out an email recently to all employees. We are not hired employees. We get paid by the school district, but we are elected officials. We are, by definition, the politicians of the school district. By definition, just because we are elected. But that doesn't mean that we should use this platform to discuss or to accuse or to recuse unless there was something that you were voting on. You are not voting on anything, Laura. You are not. Okay, I'm off of that soapbox. I wanted to ask Dr. Moore. Dr. Moore, with regard to the millage, other than negotiation processes, other than discussing about our teacher unions and all of that, other than that, how else would the vote in November adversely affect us as it pertains to district functioning and budget?
Thank you. In a number of different areas, some of which we could mitigate the loss, but the time that would take to mitigate the loss still comes at an impact. As mentioned during that meeting, there are a number of different contracts which we're in the process of negotiating or renewing, and of course, we want the best price for a multi-year contract for services that we have in place every year. We get a better price for that multi-year, 5 to 10. And we can't start the school year without those services in place, and it is unrealistic to ask those organizations or companies to provide a service without a contract or a pending contract. That is one area. Additionally, we are forecasted to experience a 10 to 20% reduction for the 21-22 school year. We need to plan for that reduction. Regardless, millage aside, we need to plan to mitigate the impact of that 10 to 20%. Not having a clear understanding if we also need to plan for an additional $9 million on top of that 10 to 20% will require us to dig even deeper into next school year in terms of cutting and reducing to mitigate that loss. So there are unknowns that could have been known. Does it break the system? No, it doesn't break the system. Is it going to impact the approval? In my humble opinion, I don't know. No, this community has shown me and us nothing but the opposite, that they will support it. But those 2 months are an impact. Those minor things cause an impact, but I don't want to undersell our desire collectively as a board to really dig in, negotiate a contract, and begin to pay teachers for what they are entitled and deserve to have. And we have been working very hard to bring that to a reality. We're this close, and it is what it is. And the reality is, as Ms. DeGresta said, it is a different interpretations of statute. And it's nothing more to read into it other than a misinterpretation. Theirs interpreting it one way based on their support staff, us interpreting it a different way based on our support staff.
So from the hardship standpoint, you just answered much more than just the negotiations processes. And those parts that you just described are not included in this letter. Can we add one additional paragraph to just briefly discuss those things that you just mentioned? Because what we see here in this, what I've read in this letter is that it talks about the interpretation of statute. We get that. And then it talks about recruiting and negotiations, but it doesn't address the other parts that can adversely affect us if we go to November. Can we add that part? Do you know what I mean, Dr. Moore?
I believe so. A quick, brief paragraph highlighting what I just shared.
Yes.
Initially, I think we discussed that and made the decision to stick to, the interpretation of the statute which led to the decision that impacted us. But I do see your point in saying, hey, this is some of the implications of that decision.
Yeah, because there's more to it than just negotiations. There's more to the impact, the negative impact that could possibly occur if we go in November. And, adding that to the letter, I don't see how that could hurt us. That's just my opinion.
Okay. Dr. Schiff? Dr. Schiff?
Yeah, I had to unmute. Sorry, it takes a minute. There's a lag on my computer. Going way back to Mrs. Barenborg's suggestion that we call our county commissioners. If that's what we agree to do, I'm happy to do that. The county commissioner in my district is Mrs. Adams, who was the one commissioner who voted in support of having this be on the primary election. I'm happy to call her, and I'm happy to have a conversation with her in her role as chair about how that conversation might go. Well, that's her decision, not mine, but I'm happy to do that if that's what we agree as a board to do. I too am unclear about the conflict of interest. I don't see how a vote for or against this is of benefit or detriment to Mrs. Zork. Yes, she happens to be married to a county commissioner. He voted against this, and I don't see where that in some way either benefits or harms her moving forward. And even if it did, I agree with Mrs. Rosario. This is not the place for that conversation. Thirdly, in reference to Mrs. DeGresta's comments about a difference of opinion, a difference of interpretation, I'm actually a little confused about that myself, because as I read this letter, I don't see where you can interpret may direct differently than may direct. So I understand your comments about that the attorney for the county commissioner is interpreting this differently, but I'm not sure what's unclear about the school board, et cetera, shall direct the county commissions to call an election, and a school district may levy in a general election. as per this letter, I'm not reading it well at the moment, but I'm not sure what's open to interpretation about that. So maybe either you can clarify that for me, or I'm I'm confused.
Mrs. Orr,
Go ahead.
may I?
Yes,
Thank you. Dr. Schiff, I'm not going to attempt to speak for another lawyer, right? I'm not going to attempt to understand how they have reached an opinion that they have reached. What I can share with you is in my conversations with the county attorney, he is of the opinion, he believes that the county commission has the discretion to choose which election this goes on. I believe, but I didn't ask this question, I believe he agrees with me that they can't just say no, that they won't put it forward, that the county commission won't put it forward to be placed on a ballot, but he believes that they do control the timing of which election.
So make it clear. Clear as mud? You're on mute.
All right, it is what it is.
Yes.
You know, I'm not an attorney, and I'm certainly not going to second guess the conversation between the attorneys. And I'm certainly not going to second guess either Ms. DeGresta or the county attorney. So it was just a question.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Berenborg, you have the floor.
Yeah, two things. I do want to address what was said by Mrs. Justice as well. You know, our meetings are a professional business meeting, and I think we need to keep it there. I understand your frustration in the comment. There is an avenue someone can take if they do question somebody not recusing themselves. And you're welcome to bring that up with the county or the commission on ethics, I believe it is. But as far as I'm concerned, unless we're voting on something that's going to personally gain, then, you know, I'm not going to bring that forward. So I appreciate you bringing that up to discuss, but I really don't think that this is the place to discuss it. The other thing I want to say is I'm curious as to why we even have to bring this to the county commission if they need to put it on the ballot and they don't have a choice in when it's put on the ballot. If that's the case, why isn't it that we just bring it to the supervisor of elections? So in other words, there's some reason why we have to bring it to the county commission for approval. So that means they have some sort of power, I would think. Am I wrong there?
May I? Mrs. Berenborg, the statute that governs this millage specifically provides that the school board directs the county commissioners to call the election. There are many different statutes that govern items that school boards may wish to put on an election. Not all of them are tax related. For instance, there is a statute that deals with a school board changing an elected superintendent from an elected position to an appointed position. There's a process to follow. And that statute also contains language that says the school board directs the county commission to place the item, you know, on the ballot. So for whatever reason, years and years ago, that well predates me, these statutes were developed which require the school board to send something to the county commission to be placed on a ballot. There are other provisions in the education code which say the school board places an item on a ballot. So this is just the language that we have in the statute.
That completes your question.
Yeah, I'll have to agree that's as clear as mud.
Okay. I would like, since I've not had the opportunity and everyone has spoken once or twice already, when I look at this, I would hope, based on the conversation that we had earlier this afternoon in the workshop, when we had said that we would come together as a school board united, I prefer to have all the school board members' names on here so that it shows that we are united as a school board. Are you okay with that?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm sorry, are you talking about this letter?
Yes.
Yes, that's what it says. It says in the first line, this correspondence is being submitted with the full support of the School Board of Indian River County.
But it's only signed by her.
Yes, I prefer
Oh,
all of
oh,
us to
oh,
sign
oh.
it or have our names on there, and we'll work out how to get your signatures, okay?
Okay, yes.
I see
I
that
can
was,
sign electronically. I know how to, I can do that. So if I get a
Okay.
PDF,
well,
you know, maybe that might help.
we'll work out the logistics of that, but Mrs. Justice has a question or comment?
I do. At the paragraph that starts at the May 12th, 2020 meeting, if you go down to the third to last line, governing, it says alvo norm. You just, okay.
Thank you. I circled that. I saw that earlier. I apologize for the typo.
I just wanted to make sure that it was right at the end of the line.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so, and I think I think it was Mrs. Berenborg that had brought this up. I'm just not comprehending, I guess, either it was out of formality, and I apologize if you have to say it again, maybe say it in a different way. So, but why do we even have to go to the county commission why would we have to ask them for permission? What do we ask them for permission today for if they don't have that authority to say yes or no? I guess that's what I'm kind of confused by tonight and digesting all this.
Yes, of course. I think it's the use of the word approval. And it's the process that we as a local government use. The elected body approves things, or you don't approve things. It's the standard terminology that we use. But this statutory provision, it doesn't say the school board then asks for approval. This statutory provision says the school board directs the county commission to have this placed on a ballot. I can't speak to why years ago that language was put in there. It's always been this way. This isn't new language that's been added in. Back, in the 70s when this statute was initially passed, this language was in there. Mm-hmm. So it was a process that was put in. I can't speak to why it would be in there. But it's not to ask for approval. It's to direct the county commission to place the item on a ballot.
So today was basically what I'm understanding, and the reason I think I was as surprised as Dr. Moore and some of the other board members, to me, today was about formality. You go there, and it's more of a ceremonial type of respect, but I wasn't anticipating that authority taken away from us. I just wasn't anticipating that. So I was just trying to understand, why do we even go there if we have all that authority to direct them?
And Mrs. Zork, it's been described to me, and others have described it as it's a ministerial act. Mm-hmm. That is language used in describing this process of the school board makes a decision to place something on a ballot, but for whatever reason the statute requires that it pass through the county commission first. It's a ministerial act of passing through the county commission first.
Okay. Mrs. Rosario?
I feel like I'm getting more heated the more that we discuss this, because, and I need to breathe, because I feel now that maybe and I don't want to say that we were misinformed, but maybe we were misinformed because we went in there with the idea, I went in with the idea that we were asking for their approval, that we were asking for, and even though I read the statute, I read the resolution, we were still asking, and we were still asking at the very end of the meeting for them to approve August or November. we were still asking. And I left happy to know that they support us on the millage as a whole, but pretty deflated that we didn't get it for the August, date. So, but now I'm thinking if we went in with a different perspective, if we went in with more assurity that this is what we are doing, and out of respect, we are coming to you all, maybe with different language, different presentation, the end result would have been different. Am I the only one that feels this way?
Mrs. Rosario, what I took from some of the things that I keep remembering, and I think it was Mrs. Justice that said earlier, and Dr. Schiff, to go back and listen to what was said. But something that keeps sticking in my head at the end was when the administrator had spoke about the legislation changing, and this has to go to November. That, I was not prepared for that transition into that conversation, because that was really sort of the first time that I heard that statute read that way. So I was a little taken off by that. And I don't know how many other board members or Dr. Moore, that statute that was read, it seemed that if the county commission did anything but that they would be going against statute. So I can't, like Suzanne says, I can't get into the minds and try to figure out what they were thinking, but that's something that stood out to me. Hi, Mr. Barenborg.
Oh, no.
I don't think you realized you're in a meeting. Your face is red.
She's red as could be.
You're a little embarrassed. It could be worse. Okay. So, do we have any other comments? No?
You want me to?
All right, Dr. Moore, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have your feedback. Just to summarize, include some additional impact language recommended by Board Member Rosario. Include a line for all board members to sign. I will make those changes and secure signatures tomorrow. Before securing signatures, I'll have opportunities for you to review any changes. I did hear an edit at the other end of the table. I will make sure that I capture that as well. I just want to be upfront and honest. Went in with the understanding that there were, as Ms. DeCrestis mentioned, that there was going to be a conversation whether it go in, if they wanted to move it to November versus us passing it through and requesting to fulfill the defined statute of placing it on the ballot in August. I think our rationale, our conversations were to give what the impact would be and to bring clarity as it relates to the impact of postponing what one would simply think it's just a few months. Well, there's no competing millage. The Children's Trust have postponed it, so you're not competing with anything. Everything is fine. So those were conversations that I anticipated happening. You never know until you present it to the body and allow it to be discussed at the dais what the conversation was going to be. I do not interpret a House Bill 5 that solely speaks to a sales tax connected at all with our millage in the statute, as Dr. Schiff was saying, that says directs That is how I see it. And that's how I would imagine most who would read it would see it. And we are in a scenario in which that interpretation is not shared by staff at the county commission. And they are being informed in a way in which we don't agree. And that is the point of contention as described or listed out here. I will make these changes. I will request for the opportunity for them to reconsider and present our case in the coming board meeting, if that is the will of I guess the county manager or whoever places items on the agenda there. Not sure how that works, but we'll make the ask and look forward to the opportunity of discussing once again how we interpret the statute that governs this body of work, as well as the impact that it has on us as a system.
Okay, Mrs. Zork, I have a comment.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Dr. Moore, can we talk about timing a little bit? Today is the 12th. The County Commission has their next meeting on the 19th. Our next meeting is on the 26th. We've talked about timing quite a bit and the fact that if we would like to make it onto the August ballot, it'll need to happen we need to make that decision and move forward by June 1st. The end of May is rapidly approaching. We discussed the fact that there would be different avenues to be able to pursue this in a different way if the County Commission chooses not to reconsider. Mrs. DiAgresta gave us an avenue today to be able to ask for clarification from a legal body for some understanding as to the situation. I don't want to miss August. I believe we have a right to be on that ballot. I think all of the board members have spoken to that, and we are in agreement on that. I don't want to miss the opportunity to have that happen regardless of whatever interference there seems to have been. So how do we move forward from here in a timely manner and put the students of Indian River County first?
Thank you. Through the chair, as said earlier, the timeline is extremely tight with the June 1st deadline. Submitting this letter would be step one, and pursuing what is our opportunity to have it heard from a court or by a judge who evaluate what the statute says would be the only other course of action for us to take, and that would have to be moved very quickly. And I think Mr. Grestis could describe that process, but we would have to have it heard, and then they would have to reconvene, and that timeline is extremely tight, as you said, so it would be very hard to make that timeline work. And then the flip side of that is that direction that the board wants to provide for me to go down to.
So, Dr. Moore, Mrs. Zork, if I may ask one more question. Suzanne, is it possible, if the County Commission does not want to reconsider their position within the period of time we have going forward, in order to be able to make an informed decision, I believe taxpayers deserve to know as well this process and how it moves forward. I have stated before, we have an excellent relationship with the County Commission, and we want to continue that. They believe one thing, we believe a different thing. It's very simple. If they choose not to reconsider, which would be within their right, is that amount of time between the 19th and, I mean, we could call a special meeting, but the first is what, a Monday? Is that enough time to be able to move this into a court system and have a hearing?
Madam Chair, yeah, my best guess is I don't know. I think that timeline is too aggressive to have a court, to have documents filed, a court hearing scheduled, a court ruling, and then that ruling returned back to the County Commission to take an alternate action. I believe 2 weeks is too short of a time frame to get all of that work done.
So my follow-up question to that would be, it was my understanding that the county administrator had asked us to wait to present this. Is that the case, Dr. Moore? I want to be clear about the timing of this, because if we do get forced into a situation where we have to take some other action, it's going to be important for us to be informed as to what that's going to be and what the realities of that are.
Through the chair, we initially did ask for the item to be presented May 5th, and there were concerns regarding safety. And I did speak to Mr. Brown, and that time the conversation was solely around safety, and then pushing it to the 12th in order to ensure that the appropriate structures were in place in order to honor that the community safety. As you saw today, there were backup rooms to support the volume of people that were coming. So yeah, it was initially the 5th and then pushed to the 12th. Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So Dr. Moore will get us the letter out, and we'll go from there. Let's move on to, we are going to move into school board member matters. So Mrs. Justice, would you like to go first?
I'd love to. Students in Indian River County that take iReady, that are on iReady, took diagnostics yesterday and today. And I know that my kids are watching because it's 7:18 and I'm not home. They're probably eating some dinner that their father has given them, I think maybe Hamburger Helper. So I love you guys. Thank you for just buckling down and getting your work done so that I could come here today and get this work done. I love you.
Okay. Dr. Schiff, or I'm sorry, I'm going to have you go second to last since you are vice chair. Mrs. Barenborg, would you like to?
Sure. I think somebody's mic is open. Okay. Anyway, the Fellsmere drive-by and say hi was wonderful, and I thought it was unique that Mr. E had that for his school. I know when Glendale started it, they started for their school, and I appreciated that they opened it up to everybody. But I think Fellsmere is a unique community and so far removed from where we were that I thought it was a special event for them, and it was so wonderful to see the parade that happened with all the floats. I'd like to say thank you to those that spoke today in support at the county commission that came out there and waited to speak, and I appreciate that. Some had prepared speeches and never got to give them, so I appreciate that, their hard work in that. I want to thank also Ms. Stampier and the Code of Conduct Committee on all the hard work. I know everybody said that, but it is a lot of work to put that together, so we appreciate that very much. And everybody continue to stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Mrs. Rosario?
Yes, Mrs. Barenborg took the list right from under me. Fellsmere's drive-by and say hi was fantastic. It was fun. It was energetic. Mr. E, as always, is out in the street, and he's just firing everybody up, even though they're all high energy anyway. But it's wonderful. All the teachers came out, and their mascot. It was a lot of fun. Yes, and a thank you to all of the supporters who showed up today and were waiting patiently to speak. I'd like to also say that the Indian River County Value Adjustment Board meeting that I sit on, their final meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, May 20th. I just wanted to let you all know. It's set up as a virtual meeting now, so we'll be ready to have the final meeting of the year. I'd like to also say something that has been weighing heavy on my heart, and Dr. Moore and I have talked about it a little bit. I contemplated whether to mention it or not, and I am going to mention it because there were children involved, and I have been contacted by some parents who have shared the same concern with regard to all of our activities in charter high school.
I'm going to ask Dr. Moore to just please give us an update publicly as to our efforts to include and, you know, in the activities and reaching out and so on and so forth, because, well, go ahead and then I will.
Mrs. Rosario, this
Please.
is School Board Member Matters, and if you don't mind, he can address that in his superintendent closing.
Well, that's pretty interesting because he has addressed a lot of other things from other school boards in the past when they have asked him to respond during School Board Member Matters, but that's okay. If you do not want him to respond to this, he does not need
No,
to,
Mrs.
because then I will. I think that charter high school, under these circumstances, charter high school students have been saddened.
Closing.
They have not felt included. I have reached out and said that they have absolutely been invited. They have reached out to me and I've responded and said that they have been included, that we did reach out, and some of the parents have had concerns over it. I just got a text, a heartbreaking text from a parent just yesterday, and said that she knows that her daughter, who is in charter high school, has been invited to participate in the senior activities of the week, but feels very disconnected because she feels like charter high school is not acknowledged on the district website pages. So it's hard to be to participate in something where she feels ignored. I am not saying that they are ignored. I'm just sharing what parents and students are sending to me. I know that I have spoken with with Dr. Moore about this, and based on the information that I have received, we have reached out, we have extended invitations. In fact, there was a letter from Kristen that Mrs. Zork, you requested that one of the flyers include charter high school on it. I'm glad that you did that. You stepped up to the plate quicker than I did. I think it's appropriate. These times are different than any other times. COVID-19 has put us all in a very difficult situation where children everywhere are struggling. And I think, you know, I personally reached out to Mrs. Aversa, charter high school principal, just to extend my hello and my congratulations to her graduates. I extended, you know, to her that if she has any needs to please contact me, that, you know, I want to be in support of her and her students no matter what. I have not heard back from her. So it's just a very odd situation, but the bottom line is charter high school is a public high school within Indian River School District. And I know that their schools, their schools in general function differently. They have their own board. But I want them to know publicly that this board member supports them. I congratulate them, all of their students, in their efforts. I want to acknowledge that this district is not ignoring them. This district is not purposely going out and not including them in our activities, and I hope that I hope they know that. I hope we have constituents from the charter community listening, and I just wanted to say that.
Is that it?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And again, Dr. Moore addressed that in the closing, Mrs. Rosario. Dr. Schiff.
Thank you. A few things have already been mentioned. I will try to be brief, but I can't promise. Had great fun. Mrs. Berenborg mentioned the pep rally at Fellsmere Elementary School, which was great. That was also a takeoff, though, and we didn't mention, because it happened since our last board meeting, the pep rally that we did at the mall.
Yes.
right? Which was great fun. The schools were there, the kids drove by. I think we all had a blast. There was some misinterpretation in reference to Mrs. Rosario's comments. There was some misinterpretation on two things. One, that was specifically for seniors, and two, that the charter seniors were excluded. I saw that all over social media, and neither of those things were true. And I appreciate Mrs. Maddox for addressing that online and social media in several places, which I saw. So thank you for responding, Mrs. Maddox, in the way that you did and clarifying that the charter schools were invited, that all the kids were invited, that it wasn't specifically for seniors. And hopefully we will do another one as specifically just for seniors. I don't know yet if we'll be able to do that. I know we've talked about it, where we'll be able to hoot and holler and scream and yell for the seniors as we did every time a senior went by in his or her academic regalia. So that was fun. The one at Fellsmere was great fun as a takeoff. Please, every school, don't start doing these. I don't think we can make it to all of them. But they were fun, and we did have a good time. I want to acknowledge also that last week was Teacher Appreciation Week. I can't say enough about the teachers in this district. I kind of feel like I want to do shout outs to each and every one by name. And I noticed that I'm reluctant to do that because I don't know everybody's name or had that experience, and of course I can't do that. I had an email prepared to send to all the teachers in honor of Teacher Appreciation Week, and I went to send it, and it turns out that I'm not authorized to send out to the district email. So teachers and others, there will be some emails coming now that I have figured that out. But I could not have been prouder today at the county commission meeting, to follow Mrs. Cannon in her addressing the county commission. And I didn't say at the time, but I wish I had said, it felt really nice to both be on the same side of the podium and the dais with our union today. It felt good to feel like we were allies, that we were collaborative, that we were together. It doesn't always feel that way. And I appreciated both Mrs. Cannon's comments at the county commission this morning, and I appreciated Mrs. Freeland's comments this evening, acknowledging the remarkable steps that we have taken as a district, as a board, and with Dr. Moore to work in collaboration and support of our teachers and our unions. And I see that only getting better as we move forward. I hope that trend continues, but I am honored and grateful to hear the unions speaking that way about working with us together. This week was also Senior Week, so congratulations to our seniors. Again, here we are all dressed up. I feel ridiculous, but Kristen told me I had to do it. So here I am, all prommed out. But this would have been graduation week, and it's not, and I know many people are feeling the pangs of that. What is happening, though, in our community is kind of remarkable. Many of you have seen on social media, there's a page called Adopt a Senior. And many people are stepping up and adopting seniors from all 3 of our high schools and sending them gifts and sending them gift cards and dropping presents at their doors. And it is incredibly heartwarming to see that happening, and then to see the videos and the pictures of the seniors receiving their gifts. And that is all 3 high schools, to be clear. Signs are going up all over the community. Social media also, Vera Beach Neighborhood Facebook site is also doing shout outs to all the seniors as they come by. And so while we're not having a traditional senior year, we're having some amazing things happen that make this unique and memorable in its own way, that is different from every other senior year that we've had. I'm looking forward to the graduations that we will have in person in July. I anticipate that happening with, fist bumps or elbow bumps, because I don't think we'll be shaking hands. No. But this is a remarkable year for that, and I want to express gratitude to the community for stepping up in all the ways that you have. And then finally, also in terms of stepping up, another remarkable thing that's happening this year in the midst of the COVID crisis is law enforcement. Law enforcement is doing these amazing drive-bys for kids' birthdays to acknowledge things happening in the community. I, I think their work is down because I think crime is down. But they're finding all kinds of other ways to connect with the community and to connect with our kids that's really remarkable and also deserves a shout out in these unprecedented times. So thank you to all of our law enforcement partners who contribute to this being the amazing community that it is. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Dr. Schiff. Thank you for mentioning the drive-by. It's been, over the last 2 weeks, a lot of events have taken place. This is normally one of the busiest times of year for us board members and a lot of the leadership who get out to these graduations, appreciation celebrations. The drive-by was definitely a great celebration, and I want to say thank you for district for putting that together, and Mr. Faust, who had proposed the idea. I think it was a great, it was perfect timing for the community. We needed it as a district, and I just think it was perfect. Teacher and staff appreciation. It was spectacular to see these goodie bags that were going out to the teachers and staff. There was the drive-bys. You had staff or the principals, and you had the PTAs that had put these gift bags together, and then the teachers and individuals would drive by in the parking lot and pick these up. So thank you for getting creative on that. And another event that took place last week, or was it last week? I think it was the volunteer appreciation virtual ceremony. That was fun. We were in here clapping, and I hope everyone else at home was clapping for all the spectacular volunteers that we have for our 2020 Outstanding Volunteers of the Year. We had the senior volunteers, and then we had the student volunteers and the adult volunteers. So thank you to all the additional help that we have coming into our schools. Last night I was able to watch on Facebook Live the Sebastian River High School virtual award ceremony for the scholarships, and a lot of money was given out to our students over the last week, because even though we're not in the buildings, we still have the community that's coming together through technology and going ahead and conducting these interviews. And a lot of well-deserving students last night on the Sebastian River High School had received some great scholarships. Tonight is actually the Vero Beach High School scholarship ceremony. I think that started at 6. And one of the benefits of being the chair of the school board since 1953 has been being the chair of the Agnes Peebles scholarship that was set up in honor of Agnes Peebles by Elizabeth Peebles. And at the time, back in 1953, when that was set up with Elizabeth, I think it was set up with a few shares from AT&T, and they were worth about $700. And then the dividends from that was to go to a young lady who had graduated from Indian River County, one of the high schools, which at the time was only Vero Beach High. And in that trust, it said that Mrs. Peebles really wanted it to go to a young lady that she didn't have to be a perfect student, but just had the desire to go off to the university. So with that scholarship now, the amount that is in there, the funds it's in that is about $4.8 million now. And so what happens is we, as whoever the chair and the committee is, we get to give out those funds and scholarships to our young ladies. And so this year we were able to give out $120,000, and we had about 19 young ladies who had gotten scholarships. So that was fun, and I know whoever's the chair next year, that's probably going to be one of the highlights of being chair, is to be able to take part in that. Also, I was honored enough to ask to record a message for the Indian River Charter High School, and I went over to the high school and recorded a message for the students, and I was able to congratulate them in the recording and saying now with the power, you know, there's a script that's at the end to congratulate them for officially being graduates of 2020. So I had that privilege this past week, and that will air through the Indian River Charter High School, through their Facebook and on their website coming up on Saturday. They're going to post that. Great event at Fellsmere. Had a great time. I wanted to also mention, since Mrs. Rosario brought it up, that I had also reached out to Mrs. Adversa. I had given her that little, what do you call it, the post that we had, congratulations, and it had all 3 high schools. And she had said that anytime that we would like to use the logo, we are more than welcome to use it. But maybe there's something that we could do formally to get that, some type of in writing, or do we need to do some type of contract to make sure that we have permission to use the logo? I would like to go ahead and have that for future whenever we want to put something out. So with that, it's been a great day working with my fellow board members. I just want to say that, you know, the work of this district's continuing, and I think the way that we continue is we're all united together. And, you know, I choose to avoid the divisiveness and division. So a lot of times, especially the last 4 board meetings, I've tried to just hold my tongue when negative things have been said about me personally. You know, I don't feel like this is the place to have personal attacks put against me. So it's unfortunate because I really feel like it takes away from the work of the district. So, but it's been a great week. Thank you to all my board members, and thank you for staff. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Moore for his closing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, as requested, as it relates to the inclusion of charter schools, I think I'm probably the most inclusive person you will ever meet on all the activities in this unforeseen, unprecedented time. All principals in the entire district are on the same exact email block that I use to send out information, and we continue to ensure that we provide that same information we provide to our principals to make these community events ultimately for the entire community. And I understand these are difficult times, and as a system, we are celebrating and acknowledging not only our seniors, but all students, and providing multiple opportunities for them to participate and engage. And of course, that is what we want to do. And it is a bit frustrating to make the offer and then on the back end be put out there saying that we are not including, and we are. So assurances to this board that we are and will continue when we do these open forums, that we make the offer and we ensure that the appropriate insurance is obtained. We are separate legal entities. We need to protect ourselves and protect our constituents and protect other organizations. That's the work that we need to do. And that's the work we do. The idea of collecting the logo, great idea. I think that is a good idea. So we will continue to make those efforts as we move through these awkward times, I guess, in addressing that. On that same note, we are in the midst of Senior Week, which are opportunities for everyone to participate. Today is obviously acknowledging that special moment, that prom date. Tomorrow is our Wednesday, which we're honoring, highlighting those who have decided to join the military. So we'll be pushing out information on social media, celebrating that gift that those individuals are giving us by serving our country. Our Memorial Island Committee, Veterans Council have heard what we were doing, reached out to us, and has quickly scheduled an opportunity to do a flag raising ceremony tomorrow. So we've circled back with ROTC They will be conducting that ceremony tomorrow at 10 a.m. Virtually, so the opportunities to link in. Small Island is only the 10 of them, but we wanted to just shout them out and thank them for responding to what we're pushing out there. Thursday is the opportunity to decorate your house, to decorate your business in your school colors, whatever they may be. Post pictures of those onto social media. SDIRC Grad Week is the hashtag that we are using. I would encourage everyone to do that. Friday is a day in which seniors will shout out and tell us where they're going, what's next, whether it is a college or university or a career path. We want to hear what they're doing and then congratulate and encourage them. And then at 6 p.m., we're going to have a 20-minute celebration wherever you may be in the county of Indian River County. Step outside your house, your business, where your restaurant you may be eating in at 25% occupancy, and stand outside, scream, shout, and celebrate, honk your horn, and acknowledge our seniors. Because the reality is, regardless of what school you go to, that senior year is a special, special time. Graduation, as you know, is July 10th and 11th. We are looking forward to having the most traditional graduation possible based on whatever the reality is, July 10th and 11th. So as we come closer to that particular date, we'll be working with our senior class officers on what restrictions we would have to have in place on those particular dates to have that in-stadium graduation that we are obligated and desire to provide for them. So those are the announcements. A lot of work follow-up for me. Just want to say today was very, very rewarding in the sense of coming together as an organization. But still feel a little as if the carpet's been pulled out from underneath me because we're going to have to work very, very hard with a very, very short time frame. And if a shift in decision isn't made by the county, we will be forced to live with that decision because the time frame is not going to allow us to pursue a legal response. And I think if we did go and get that legal response, I'm not a lawyer, but I think the opinion would be that we are in the right here. We are in the right. And a decision is being imposed on us that's going to impede our ability to be best by kids. And I'm sorry, but that doesn't sit well with me. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Moore. Before we close, I would like to have Kristen and Brandon and everyone that has their tux and dressed up. I would like to come over here because I think you've dressed tonight to honor our seniors. They need to be able to enjoy your attire.
We all need to be able to enjoy this attire.
Where's the camera? Keep going, Dr. Moore.
So as we get ready to take our prom picture, I would be disappointed in myself if I didn't say, as soon as this meeting is over, I get to go home to my prom date, who is my wife and the mother of my 2 children. So wearing a bow tie today, the last one I wore probably was our wedding, and the one before that was our prom picture that she found and sent to me, so I got posted today. That is me with all the hair in that picture, but so honored and so blessed to be married to such an outstanding woman. And we'll take another prom picture. Here we go.
Okay, but I want to make sure that the individuals in the public get to see the beautiful attire.
So pretty.
Full senior prom dress from Beer Beach
Yes.
High School.
Come on, Dr. Moore. This is not my prom.
Okay, just saying, but Kristen and Brandon, you look like your prom dates going to the prom. From this angle, it's incredibly
I'm not going to
adorable.
be in that picture because I look like the supervising dad. No, I'm not going to do that.
Come in the center where the center round table is so everybody can see you on the camera here.
Over here? Okay.
Oh my gosh, they're so cute.
It's adorable.
Have her home by midnight. Wait.
Remember social distancing, right?
It's like a middle school prom.
So we're going to adjourn tonight this meeting, but we want to say congratulations to all our seniors. We love you. We're thinking about you this week. And go to IndianRiverSchools.org so that you can check out all the activities that we have for the rest of the week. And I'm going to adjourn this meeting at 7:47. Thank you.